Hello, I'm Kurt Lidke, Executive Director of Klamath Film, and you just watched The Puzzle, a fun short stop motion animated film in our Southern Shorts category that is simultaneously both simplistic and deep at the same time. Here with us is the director of The Puzzle, Lori Nussbaum. Hello, Lori, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, you have some distinction here because, this film festival, we're now in our eighth year of it. It started as a showcase for Klamath Film members to show off their work, and it has grown from a single day event into a 3 day event that collects films from all over the state. You are the only active Klamath Film member that had a film selected for the Film Fest. And if I'm not mistaken, this is
Oh.
also your very first film, right?
Yeah, it's the first film I submitted into KIFF. Yeah, I've had more time with COVID, and so it's sort of like, oh, why don't I make a short film?
Suddenly there's an abundance of free time and you're finding yourself doing something, and you're schooling all of us veteran filmmakers that made something that didn't pass muster with the judges, so congratulations on that. um, so the topic of this film is interesting. You and I, we get together often when there isn't a global pandemic, and we play a lot of games, and so I know that this is coming from a personal place for you, but what made you want to make a film all about doing puzzles? What, aside from an abundance of free time, what was the inspiration?
Yeah, so I've also had a lot of time to do puzzles. Um, and I really enjoy like doing puzzles. And when you start doing a puzzle, especially more challenging ones, you have a lot of time to think, sort of, as you're doing the puzzle. And a lot of times I listen to audiobooks or watch movies as well. But yeah, and so it was just trying to find some reasoning and like understanding doing this all gold puzzle. And it's just like, this is probably like one of the hardest, most challenging puzzles I've ever done. And yeah, it just sort of some of the stuff that I was thinking about when, completing it, that's sort of what came out when I was narrating it. And just thinking, and I've just been like overall more reflective with COVID. And so, yeah, it just sort of like came together. And I did it over Memorial Day weekend and did about 700 squats to do it, because I had to put the puzzle on the floor. There's a lot of stuff that I learned through the process of what not to do for next time. But yeah, I at least with the logistical aspects of the film. But yeah, I don't know. I just really like puzzles, and especially just thinking about how relationships change, and um, the analogy of how that is like to a puzzle, or how life is to a puzzle. It just makes so much sense to me. And like just by doing that, comparison, it can be helpful and like make stuff into more manageable bite-sized pieces. And one of the mottos I sort of live by is, eat the elephant one bite at a time. Or you could also, equate that as do a jigsaw puzzle by one piece at a time. And so it's just helpful, like especially with more complicated or complex or sort of scary situations. It's like, how do you go about dealing or handling it? And it just makes it more helpful, I guess, in a way.
There's a couple questions that come up that I'm sure the audience thinks about as soon as they watch your film. One is, why in the world would you pick such a ridiculously difficult puzzle to do for this film? When you know you're going to film it, you're going to expert mode. Is this like
Yeah.
a part show off on your part to prove that you could do something that most people would throw out after 5 minutes? Just say screw this.
Sure, yeah. So the funny thing is I actually did the puzzle and then decided to do the short film about it. So I had actually got this puzzle, oh gosh, several months before, because I had done this all silver puzzle, which was done by the same puzzle company. And I really enjoyed it, but the gold one was much harder, which I found out. doing it. But yeah, no, I actually did the puzzle first, and then because it was such a hard and difficult, puzzle, I actually just had it on my table, and I was like, I'm not putting this right back into the box. Like I'm just not doing it. And so it was sitting on my table for, I don't know, probably a good month and a half or so, and it was getting close to the KIFF deadline. And I saw like a reminder email or Facebook thing about the KIFF deadline, and I was like, huh, I could maybe make a short film about this. And it'd be a good way to sort of commemorate this puzzle that was like really difficult to make. That I really, enjoyed instead of just putting it back into the box and, sort of forget about doing it.
The process behind making this. You've been a volunteer with us at all sorts of events. We've done showcases of animated films before, so I'm sure you've heard about the painstaking process. But did you have any idea how arduous stop motion animation is until you delved into it?
Um, I completely misjudged that. If I'm gonna be completely honest, um, yeah, I was just like, this is gonna be easy, and to get, you know, uh, I com yeah, there was a whole lot of should have thought this out more, should have talked to people. I looked at a couple things online, and I was like, okay, you just snap a couple pictures, you put it together, it'll be easy peasy. But then because of my table, I couldn't have on the table because I would have had it been up so high. I felt like I was going to fall down to get a picture. And so then I moved the puzzle to the floor, but then each time I removed a piece of the puzzle, I had to do a squat to and then come back up and take the picture. And so yeah, and if I would have had a camera tripod, I could have had that, and even like one of those clickers, I could have been clicking and been sitting, on the floor, just removing the puzzles all easy peasy. And no, I didn't have that, and so I definitely learned a hard way how not to potentially make a stop motion short film. But it was it was still very enjoyable, and I learned a lot. But I would definitely not do the same methods that I did this time.
I've heard a lot of stories and talking with animators about how emotionally draining the stop motion process is, but I had no idea that you could also blast your quads at the same time and get a workout in too. I mean that's just like that doubling up, multitasking, multitasking animation. So congratulations on inventing a thing.
Right, as well as like almost crying because of the pain, going working through it just to finish the short. Yeah.
So did you just use your phone for this? I mean, what tech did you use? Because it's very simplistic in nature, but it's also very engaging the way that you put it all together.
Yeah. So I just use my Canon PowerShot camera. I got several years ago, and I thought about actually not doing stop motion, and I was like, that's going to be too difficult. And so yeah, I just took a lot of pictures with that. And yeah, a tripod would have helped to keep it more centered, and you can notice throughout it that it's moving around a little bit. I tried to prevent that. I had a thing on the left side and on the top side, but I forgot about the up and down of the camera, and so that's where it gets a little jerky because I had those lined up, but just having it a little bit up higher gives a little bit different perspective. But yeah, no, so very low tech, and I mean it was just a puzzle. So yeah.
It's just a puzzle. I personally liked the jerkiness because it gave it some camera movement as opposed
Mm,
to what otherwise would have looked like just a time lapse thing.
mm,
Um, our judges, when we went through the programming process, and it's kind of interesting. You're also the only filmmaker in the festival who is also a opening round judge for the festival. Full disclosure, we did not have Lori judge her own film, but Lori was part of the original round of judges, and your film progressed to the throughout all of the rounds to make it into the festival. People really went to bat for your film, and as
mm,
far as production phase, yours was definitely the most simplistic in nature. I mean, the process is extraordinarily complex, but the
for sure.
structure of it was the simplest. But everyone just spoke gushingly in our programmers panel about the philosophy behind your film. It's the narration that really caught people, in that it's so honest and heartfelt in its approach. So I'm sure people are curious whether you wrote that out or whether that was just completely off the cuff.
That was off the cuff. I mean, when I was doing the puzzle, I was, thinking about some of the ideas and stuff, but I didn't write anything down. And I put all the pictures in how I wanted it to show. And then as I was watching it play, I was just narrating it, just to, and went with it. And after I heard the narration, I was like, oh, I could do better. And so I actually tried to do other recordings, and then it sounded awful. It sounded so fake, and or it just didn't sound natural. Maybe not fake, but it just didn't have the right flow to it. Because like even like the one part that I'm like, oh, circles, these are sort of fun, or whatever that line was. Like that was just something like as I was watching it, I was like, oh my gosh, like that's sort of cool. But when I tried to like do that again in another recording, it just sounded really weird. But yeah, no, I definitely tried to do more of a, you know, formalized or like writing it out and having more of a process. But I actually went with my first take because it just sounded more natural, and just sort of like a stream of consciousness, which is what sort of the film is about.
Well, that approach gives it an honesty that you don't see in a lot of films. So kudos for that, of it
Thank you.
being completely improvised. I think that's what people connected with, was that it's, puzzles in general, you can get into a sort of a mindset with it where you can kind of drown out the world. And um, the philosophical aspects of what you talk about in your narration come across as a very zen-like experience with the film. I think that's what a lot of people got out of it, and then hopefully what our film festival participants are getting out of it too. Um, did you have any sort of hope or expectation for the film when you made it, of like how you want people to interpret it, or was this just a time waster to consume a day when you had nothing to do?
Definitely not a time waster. I don't think I would waste my time doing 700 squats over a weekend. um, no, I would hope. I mean, I definitely don't have all the answers. And nobody does. But I would hope that on some aspect that people would be able to connect with some part of it, or at least just to reflect and to think
Hmm.
about things on maybe a deeper level that like really had it. Because actually, after my film got selected to KIFF, and I was rewatching it later on. Well, sorry, I should. The film was selected into KIFF, and then a relative of mine passed away, and then I rewatched my short after that, and it just had a different impact to me because it was like, oh my gosh, this relative that just passed away had so much more of an impact on my life than they ever knew, and like really I ever consciously knew until they of course had gone, which is sort of sometimes how things happen. Is like once somebody is out of your life, either they move to a different location, or you're not communicating with them anymore, or they pass away, then you realize the importance and the impact that they had. But this relative definitely helped me through a really tough time when I was younger, and really just trying to figure out who I was, and helped me to get some of my out of the box thinking, which isn't quite incorporated into the short film, but it definitely, watching it another time after being selected and then my relative passing, it definitely had a different um, meaning for me just watching it. And so yeah, I just hope everybody enjoys it, because I think uh, I think there's potentially a different connection depending where you are or what's going on with your life, and I think that's really cool.
It sounds like this film largely was kind of self therapy of getting through the whole COVID era, and I'm very glad that you made it. But were you surprised by its selection?
I was a little bit, yeah, to be honest. I mean, I did I I did enjoy making it, and I did hope that other people would enjoy watching it. But I've been a person who rates, KIFF previous years, and so I know the quality of the films that get submitted each year, and it's just like, oh, like I don't have the high tech stuff, I don't have whatever, but I was just like, I really like the content of mine, and sometimes the content, even with lower quality stuff, that makes a film a lot higher in rating and stuff. And so, um, yeah, I sort of put it together just for fun and to commemorate me doing this really difficult, challenging gold puzzle. And I just wanting to share it potentially with some friends. But yeah, I submitted it into KIFF, sort of being like, well, it might get in, it probably won't, but who knows?
Well, I alluded to it at the beginning. In normal times, whatever that term may be, we're getting together a couple times a month to play board games and video games and doing all that fun stuff. So, how are you coping getting through COVID? Because I haven't had a chance to hang out with you in months. It's weird not seeing everybody. Are you doing okay?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. It's definitely you I think it's also giving COVID actually in a way has been sort of helpful because I know that sounds weird, but it's taken away a lot of distractions. And so it's like, what is actually meaningful in your life? What do actually, what do you gravitate towards when you aren't distracted by this, whatever, or this, activity or whatnot. And so that's been interesting. At times I haven't liked that aspect at all. And I wish, COVID hadn't happened and all the, side effects of that. But it has been interesting, looking into that and sort of, if I'm not interacting with people as much or going to the library as much, which is like my favorite place, or definitely my top five in Klamath Falls. It's definitely my top activities with board game nights and retro video game nights, which I dearly miss. But yeah, I actually joined virtual D&D that the library is doing, which I had never had interest in D&D before. But it's sort of a game, and I was just like, well, I'll try it out. It might fix my game fix. We'll see. And it's actually been quite delightful. It's been very funny and pushing myself in different ways that I was, not expecting. But yeah, no, it's always good to try new things and to get a little bit uncomfortable, but still feel like okay with this, and to see how you do in a new situation. And so, but yeah, I don't know, but definitely lots of puzzles. um, which I mean, I've always enjoyed puzzles, but I've definitely done a decent amount of puzzles in the last 6 months that I probably wouldn't have done otherwise. But
We definitely need to talk to our co-host and see if we can figure out some sort of virtual board game connection night because we're all jonesing for that fix right now.
yeah.
It has been far too long for it. You said getting out of the comfort zone, and here's one for you. You have long been one of our most loyal volunteers at Klamath Independent Film Festival, being a mic runner and doing a little bit of everything. Um, you're now a selected filmmaker, which means you get to do a Q&A on stage with us where you get to talk about yourself, which I know is just such a comfortable thing that you just love doing in front of the public. So, uh,
I'll start running the mic to other
yeah.
filmmakers.
did, did you have any concept of the repercussions of if your film actually got submitted?
Yeah, no, I hadn't really thought about it until I actually like, a day before the selections were announced, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, like if I actually get selected, like people will see my film, which which is really sort of a funny aspect to have that that didn't really like click before. Maybe it wasn't quite a day, maybe it was like a week before, but it hadn't quite like really clicked before, that was like a potential. But I mean, I do art and creative endeavors all the time, but I don't really show it to many people, and so that's a little nerve wracking. And yeah, I am maybe slightly uncomfortable with that, but I think it'll be good. And if anybody really dislikes my short, I mean, that's great. Like, give me the feedback. I will take it. Just please say, like, thank you or you're welcome at the end of it. Like, be polite. But
Well,
yeah.
wait, for something that, and I know you're a very creative person, but you don't think of yourself as a filmmaker per se. This was just kind of a fun little side project. You have now accomplished more in a squat-filled weekend than what many professional filmmakers will ever accomplish in their entire career. So congratulations on that. Has that really sunk in at this point yet? That you can put filmmaker, film festival selected filmmaker on the old resume at this point now, Lori.
Yeah, no, that hasn't sunk in. It does make me feel like I might pigeonhole myself as a filmmaker just about puzzles. Like, does that happen with filmmakers? I know it happens sometimes with actors and stuff, but um,
You can launch your own subgenre. Any final thoughts, words of wisdom, perhaps, since your film does take such a Zen approach about life in general, or your film, The Puzzle?
um, yeah, I mean, life. Like, it's funny because I made the short, and then, like, now, like, watching it a couple times, like, I mean, there for a while, it was, like, tiring because 'cause you're, like, editing your voice, and, like, hearing your voice that much is like, "Oh my goodness," but having time not, like, editing it and then rewatching it, like, it's just like I said some things and had a different meaning to it, and then I rewatched it and it has, like, a different meaning again. And so it's like, this is gonna be interesting to, like, rewatch this, like, several years from now. But, yeah, it definitely, if I had more time and higher tech, it could have potentially been, better quality overall. But I think it would have been lacking some of the charm that it has, in a way that it's, very sincere, as you put, and very honest. And I try to do that in regular life, try to be honest and sincere with people. And yeah, I showed it to a couple friends and they're just like, "Oh my goodness, this is so you." Like, they were like, if I had a lineup of films and you're like, which one did Lori make? They would have been, even if the voice had been like altered or something and they didn't know how I sounded, they would have been like, this is Lori's film.
Yeah, totally.
And so yeah, but on just the greater life lessons. I mean, I it's really, you sort of just like got to go about life and like learn things. I mean, people can tell you things, but if you're not actually willing to listen and like understand what they're saying, it's going to go in one ear, out the other. And then you're going to probably have mistakes happen. But like, as long as you learn from those mistakes and keep trying to improve and grow, that's the way to do it, because life is just basically a whole process of learning. And yeah, it doesn't stop after grade 12 or after college. It's definitely, and if you find enjoyment in learning, you're gonna find more enjoyment in life, in my opinion. And so the puzzle, the short film, was definitely a lot of fun, a lot of learning, and a really good milestone in my life.
Well, filmmaker, life coach, philosopher. Thank you, Lori, for taking some time out to join us. And people can catch the puzzle all weekend long online via Eventive, or you can catch it in person at the Ross Raglan Theater here in Klamath Falls on Sunday, September 20th during our Southern Shorts block. Lori, great to see you as always. When things aren't so weird, we'll definitely have to have a game night again sometime.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you, Kurt.